What about diets? Okay, the Swank diet is the one that we've probably heard of most. This was invented by a Dr. Roy Swank who went to Norway and was struck by the fact that Norwegians inland had a much higher incidence of MS than Norwegians on the sort of fishing coastal communities. And the only difference really was diet, and because they were at the same latitude, but their diet was dramatically different. The inland folks were eating a lot of milk and cheese and fat and meat. And on the coast, they were basically eating fish and very little of these high-fat foods. So what Dr. Swank did was he took the diet that he observed in Norway, and he started a bunch of people in Canada on this diet. Several hundred people were in his clinic. I think he was in Toronto or Montreal. And this is the longest trial that's ever been conducted in MS. He followed these people for 34 years. So, you know, we're used to 3-year trials in MS, 2-year trial, 3-year trials. And then the drug company is really ready for their drug to get to market. Well, in a diet, you know, there's no drug company here. I mean, this is just following people over a long period of time. So he was able to watch 144 patients over 34 years adhere to this very, very low-fat diet. And we'll talk about what that is. And he found that the relapse rate before the diet was about one attack a year. We're used to that. That's a very customary, traditional relapse rate in MS. The patients who stayed on this diet over 34 years reduced their relapse rate to 0.1 events per year. And that was a dramatic change. It's a very, very low-fat diet, 20 grams of fat maximum, which is a lot less than you just ate, okay? So 20 grams of fat, no dairy, so no milk products whatsoever are allowed. No glutens. So glutens are what you see in wheat and bread and the like. So you can't have any glutens, can't have any dairy. No saturated fat from animals, so no beef fat, no chicken fat, and he didn't allow beans or peas. It really makes you wonder what he did allow.
How did they get their protein?
Fish. So this is a fish diet, okay? These folks ate a ton of fish, at least 3 to 4 days a week of fish, and so that's where they got their protein. What are saturated fats? So many of you are asking, well, okay, what's the difference between a saturated fat and an unsaturated fat? The simple way to remember them is that saturated fats are solid at room temperature. So stuff, you know, globby-looking fat at room temperature is saturated. Okay, so butter is a saturated fat. Meat fat is a saturated fat. Well, unsaturated fats tend to be liquidy at room temperature. So corn oil, safflower oil, olive oil, these are unsaturated fats. You've heard of the term trans fats. Well, what trans fats are is taking a good fat and making it a bad fat. So what we do is we're very smart people, and we know how to take, we take this stuff, good fats, and we put them in the chemistry lab, and we change them in a certain way to make them thicker and tastier and more stable. I was led to believe that it has something to do with the fact that fats are, at least for commercial purposes, are much more stable and easier to use if they're solid than if they're liquid. So yeah, I don't know if that's true, but that's what I read. So anyway, so unsaturated fats we know are better. They're better for the heart, they're better for the weight, and it turns out they're probably better for MS. Some of the unsaturated fats that we talk about here are omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids, and you've probably heard those in reference to heart disease. So omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids, you find these in fish. So these greasy fish like salmon, mackerel, herring, sardines have these omega-3 fatty acids. And it turns out when they study these in the laboratory, they're very anti-inflammatory as well. So all those things we talked about vitamin D doing to the immune system, omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids seem to do as well. They also have been shown to blunt the effect of EAE. And so there's this trend towards thinking, well, gee, if fish oil is good for preventing heart disease and stroke, it may be good for preventing stroke, for preventing MS as well. And so there are a number of trials revving up to look at the use of fish oils, omega-3 fatty acids for the prevention of MS and the mitigation of MS attacks.